with the gang. And it's going to be exciting. If it pans out to be anything like the tour last summer, we've got to think there'll be an open training session probably at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, which is the home of the Colorado Rapids and the venue for the All-Star game, as well as probably a night out for the supporters group, hopefully with some legends the night before, as was the case with the three venues in Seattle, Chicago, and Toronto last summer. So I know there are a lot of people kind of upset because they felt that this needed to be a season where there was not a lot of travel, particularly on the back of the decision to go to Kuala Lumpur and Sydney at the end of the season. But the good thing is that's at the end of the season, and this one is 2 months later, so the players get their break and can get stuck into pre-season training. It is arguably one match away from the final pre-season game before the new season starts, and I think it will be good more for Tottenham's exposure in this country, which does rankle with a lot of people, but this is a prime market that Spurs have really captured well and will continue to nurture with the exposure that they'll get in this game. It's not a big stadium. I believe it's like 17,500. So the atmosphere should be good, especially if we can fill out 1/3 of that stand that the supporters have been allocated to be in, and obviously have been on national television, which is great exposure for us as well.
Yeah.
And Dallas Spurs, I think we've already got 20 people that have bought tickets and started to look at their flights and accommodation for this match. So I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, it's another opportunity to see Spurs this year after going to White Hart Lane in May, and I think for those of our supporters that didn't go to Chicago and experienced a really good time, this is a great opportunity for them. It's a bit challenging being midweek, but you got to just take the time off work and get up there and get stuck into the fun. It's only really a couple of states away. It's drivable at a stretch, but I think most people are probably going to fly, and we'll pool our resources, and we're really looking forward to it.
I think also this week it got announced that the Audi Cup is being played as well, and that's going to be us, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, and Bayern Munich. So that's something to look forward to in the summer as well. I think that's played over in Europe, though, so for those of you that do the away days over in Europe, that could be a fun little something to do in the middle of summer when you're missing some Spurs. Go and find the Audi Cup. And
where is that? Where's that being played?
Is it Germany? Let me take a
look. I don't think it's not been officially confirmed, has it?
I saw a rumor, but I didn't. I saw a headline. I don't know whether it was officially announced.
I don't think it's been officially confirmed, but again, we picked up on the rumor of the All-Star game probably back in February, and I had never seen anything about it again. So it was a castaway one-liner for us on a podcast once, and we were obviously hoping it would happen, and I'm glad it panned out like it did. But I hadn't seen anything confirmed yet on the Audi Cup. I found it interesting today, and I don't know if you fellas caught this, but when the club posted via Twitter the highlights from today, I logged on with my client reference number and it said, sorry, your region is not eligible to see this until April the 21st. I'm like, are you kidding me? When were we ever relegated to not be able to see the highlights of a game that was played on that day until 2 days later? That's asinine. So, Daniel, have a word, mate.
Yeah, no kidding.
Last thing I have, lads, and we kind of mentioned this, and it's not Tottenham-ish, but it does affect next season, is, the Championship. What a cracking season is going on there. More drama unfolding this past week with midweek matches and the matches on the weekend, and it seems like there's someone topping that table differently every week. Watford are now a point above Bournemouth because of the late drama at Bournemouth yesterday after they came from behind only to give up a goal deep into stoppage time via none other than one of our former players, Adam Smith, who gave away the penalty. But Bournemouth is still holding second place on goal difference over Middlesbrough, who've been on a fine run of form. Then it's Norwich, Derby and Ipswich. So they've got 2 matches to play. There doesn't seem to be anyone playing each other. They seem to all be playing opposition outside of the current top six. I think Brentford have kind of faltered in the last few weeks. They're sitting in seventh and they're 3 points out. But again, anything could happen. Wolves are in eighth, and they're in with a shout if the results go their way. So who do you think will get the automatic promotion spots, and who do you think out of this current six, or maybe even include Brentford and Wolves, will be the most likely to win the playoffs to come up?
Ooh, that is a good question.
It's a log jam.
Well, the way it's been going, it is a $67,000 question. I mean, anyone could do it. Granted, I think outside of the top four, you can't see anyone else. Derby are not going to get that second spot.
No, they're not.
They can't get that.
Let me start by saying that I want to see Gomez back in the Premiership. I think that would be cool if he brought Watford up. But I'm kind of pulling for Bournemouth and Middlesbrough. Those are the two that I would like to see to get the automatics. Middlesbrough, I think, will be a little bit tougher. The goal difference isn't as good. Norwich has really come on in the last 2 months, and they could overtake all comers, including Watford. So that's a team to look out for. Derby, I think Derby's going to struggle with Ipswich just to get into the playoff. I really do, because they're only, what are they, a point ahead of Ipswich? Ipswich has been up and down. They started off like gangbusters, and they kind of had a little bit of a sour patch. I think about 6 weeks ago, 2 months ago, they were really kind of struggling. They couldn't seem to get their feet back under them. Because remember, beginning of the season, Nottingham Forest was running away with this thing, and then they just fell apart. I mean, they completely got just dismantled the rest of the way, and I think they're sitting about 11th or 12th right now, down there with Sheffield and Cardiff, and I think Fulham's not going to get relegated, but they are terrible.
Well, the thing is, Fulham, their last two games, they've got some pretty tough fixtures. They are home to Middlesbrough, and then they are away to Norwich. Norwich actually probably should win their last two games because of the Fulham match, and they're at Rotherham, who are also at the wrong end of the table. So, Norwich could, if they win both two games, I'd like to see Fulham stay up, and I think, I think they're safe now.
What do they play, 46?
Yeah.
So there's 2 games left, for the most part.
Yeah. So
aside from Blackburn and Birmingham, there's 2 games left. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Blackpool are down.
Yeah, they're gonna.
Wigan mathematically can still survive, but I see them going down. Looks like Millwall and Deep Doo-Doo. So, I think Fulham is safe. That would be unfortunate for them to drop 2 relegations in a row. I'd like to see Watford and Bournemouth. Obviously, I've got a soft spot for Bournemouth, having lived there for a while. I'd like to see them come up. And to your point, Gomes back in the Prem would be awesome. I really think Norwich could arguably take one of those 2 guys out and take that automatic promotion spot.
I really feel sorry for Derby, the way they lost to QPR last year, that you really expected them to vault themselves into a position where they should be able to contend and possibly get in, but they've stumbled a little bit. They were another one that started off really hard, had a little bit of a stumble, and have tried mightily to get back in things. And they're in a position, they're sitting currently 5th, 1 point ahead of Ipswich, and as Brentford, like we said, they've kind of faltered off. They're 3 points behind Ipswich. So, wow, it's.
I think you're going to find probably, I hate to say it, I think it's probably going to be Norwich will, if they can win the whole thing, but I think they'll get the top 2, and hopefully Bournemouth can win the playoff. Yeah. I'd like to see, obviously, everyone to just win their remaining games, but it's interesting, and I think having watched that god-awful Chelsea United game yesterday, that was just horrible. And do these teams, I might be getting ahead of myself and setting myself up for a pratfall here, but would it behoove, this is where the traditionalists will probably slaughter me, and I am a traditionalist, but based on how this has gone, and over here it's not getting a lot of media attention, and hopefully it is in the UK with the way the championship race is going, but let's say for shits and grins, that in the Premier League, first and second, you take first, you win the title. We're not saying that should ever get changed and become all Americanized. And second, well deserved. Why don't we take 4 through 6 and say, you lot should play for the final Champions League spots? And we have. Do you think that would force those next 4 clubs, giving someone in 6th place, which, let's face it, seems to be us an awful lot, 5th or 6th, an opportunity to put yourself in a home and away series, and even a one-off to get a crack at the Champions League? Well, you could argue that's not fair, but I mean that's what they've been doing in the Championship for probably 10 plus years now, and I don't see anyone complaining about that.
Well, how indifferent is that from the Europa League playoff? Or would it be basically the same thing?
Well, you don't play off to get into the Europa League.
But don't they have like those 1 or 2 teams that have to have like a preliminary match that they have to win to be able to get into a group?
If we take that last one, there's discussion and conversation about we may have to play a midweek, mid-July or late July match as a 3rd qualifying round.
Right. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Do we really want to do that and just add more competitive games to what is the hardest competition, what seems to be the hardest club competition in the world to win? It's ridiculous. And again, both of you said, hey, it's Europe and it's a cup competition. I get that, but this is where I will revert to being a traditionalist. I miss the old UEFA Cup format. This competition and this cup has been diluted by trying to be the next Champions League. It's not worked. And I know they were saying it didn't work as a UEFA Cup, but let it just go back to being a home and away knockout from the beginning. I know there are a lot of clubs, but let all these Mickey Mouse countries start in the 17th qualifying round and let the big boys play. No different to the FA Cup. Let the big boys come in and maybe 12 games get you into the final,
right?
And make it something a little more competitive. But it has just been diluted to hell, and it's just you've got to win more games in that to lift the trophy than the Champions League. I don't get that.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't mind. It's a really great question. I'm going to think about that. I think the safe answer is that I wouldn't mind that happening for the Europa spot. I'm not sure that a league would want that to happen to get a representative into such a prestigious tournament like Champions League, but Europa League. I think that would be a good analogy to what goes on in the Championship, right? You have all these teams, in a sense, for a playoff spot to get that last spot into the Premier League. I don't know. It's interesting. It's a great question.
Just give them all a stick and let them beat on each other. Last man standing.
And the only reason I brought it up was it almost felt like Chelsea were going through the motions yesterday, and United were like, oh, we didn't really try, and okay, so we lost, and it just seems that the big four, if that's what you want to call them, they think they've got it sewn up. And granted, this season has panned out differently. It's not been the same for all season as in seasons past. But they seem a little complacent in their attitude of maintaining those top 4 positions. And if they knew that they had to really fight to get first or second, would it make those 3rd through 6th positions a little more competitive and ignite the league so it doesn't become a bit of a washout towards the end of the season? Because that's what it feels like to me right now. It's just those 4 teams are just playing it out, and no one else seems to give a rat's ass. While everyone else down at the bottom is looking forward to the summer holidays. I think some commentator said that they're playing as if they're already on the beach.
Well, Simon, this probably is something we can all think about independently for this week, but it really hasn't been a great year for the Premier League at all. I mean, in terms of what's going on in the top 4, top 6, how they've done in Europe, really the most exciting thing that's been going on in the Premier League is really what's going on at the bottom of the league and the last 5 or 6 teams there.
Right.
So, anyway,
because with 5 or 6 games to go, Chelsea's pretty much a lock now, and so there's really no excitement. As Ted Lasso tells us, there's no playoffs. So the season's basically done and dusted. The top 4 are pretty much melded into what's going to happen, barring an absolute collapse by Man City. So the only thing we really have to look forward to is who's not going to get relegated, and watching that scrap, and who wants to watch that?
Well, no, but